Good morning. I'm with Bill Doyle again, and he's going to bring us up to date with new items and issues with the accident of the Dolly. Bill, welcome again. Good morning.
Good morning, Tony. Thank you for having me again. And here we are. Operations are about to begin, and the equipment is in place. Most of your equipment is in place, and some are on the way.
So, you had mentioned that there was quite a bit of equipment that was there in the area. You had mentioned some big cranes that were there. What sort of cranes are coming in? What is the game on the ground around the ship right now? What are the salvers and the people bringing in as far as equipment, and what's going on? Bring us up to speed with that.
Well, absolutely. So what took place over the past couple of days, once we get out of the search and rescue mode, okay, is you had into the sonos. Okay, so you had the surveying vessels that would survey basically the hull of the ship and the ocean floor to find out where all the metal is. Okay, so that has been completed. Okay, next, what we had is, as I explained before, is Cashman Dredging and Marine Contracting. They have the largest bucket dredge in the Western Hemisphere. That's stacked in Curtis Bay. They also have two, 5,000 cubic yard dump scow barges. They're ready to go. They have informed me that their crew is now in Curtis Bay and ready to go. So the crew, is outfitting the vessel itself, warming up the engines, and they're ready to get into action. Also, what you've seen come in, two 300-ton crane barges. Those crane barges are now at the docks over at Trade Point Atlantic. Okay. So Trade Point Atlantic, that's, like I had mentioned before, that's the old Bethlehem Steel shipyard in Baltimore County. It's only about 1.5 miles from the actual Francis Scott Key Bridge Theater. Okay, so those two cranes are there. Also, what came in overnight is the 1,000-ton Don John Chesapeake crane barge. So that's in the area. Going over to Trade Point Atlantic or an anchor will be on site. And then we also have the 500-ton Weeks 533 crane barge in transit and on its way down. Point of significance with the Weeks 5 is that was actually the crane barge that they used to get that U.S. Airlines flight out of Hudson Bay. So when we saw that, the story about Sully Sullenberger, right. That's the crane that pulled that airplane out of the water. So those assets are in place. Now, next steps, there's a couple of things being discussed, including digging a channel around the site for smaller vessels to get under the span that's still open. So, what I've spent the last day with my dredging companies on the dredging side is getting an assessment of the equipment that would be needed in order to dredge that, what you would call a loop channel around the area. So there's a lot of ideas on the table right now. Most important thing, Tony, that I think that we need to do is the structure of the bridge that is laying on the bow of the ship. That will need to be removed in order to, really get in there with these crane barges and start pulling the metal out of the channel. Is you got to get the ship out of the way. Okay, so that means some of the containers that are hanging over the side, some of the containers that are on the bow, they're going to need to be removed. Okay, so the crane equipment is there to remove those. If you remember, Baltimore's kind of got a history of recent history and experience in this, because when the Ever Forward went aground, we eventually had to remove 500 containers at sea. Okay, so this is an at sea, ship to ship unloading of containers. Get the containers off, move the vessel out, bring the vessel to a dock, and then the National Transportation Safety Board and the U.S. Coast Guard can continue with all their inspections. So, until such time as the NTSB and the U.S. Coast Guard are comfortable with operations to begin on removing, the structures that are lying on the bow, the equipment is in place and ready to go to do that.
So the bow of the ship, as I read this morning, is pinned
Yeah, the bow of the ship is pinned and the hook, the anchor is down.
and the
Okay.
anchor is down, right?
Yeah. So, and the crew is still on board, Tony.
Are they
So,
really?
I mean, that ship was heading to Bangladesh. So yeah, that ship was going to head to Bangladesh. So, food supplies, all of that is on board, the vessel. It
Okay,
still can operate. It still has machinery that needs to work. And, of course, when they move that vessel, when it's towed out of there or in some sort of its own power, to move out of the way, it can go to the hook or it can go to the dock. All right, and we'll wait to see what the government, the NTSB and the U.S. Coast Guard, when they give that green light, uh, to start the operations of removing the
right.
metal from the ship. Once
So
you get the ship out of the way, yeah, go ahead.
let me ask you this. I understand that the vessel had issues previously. It had the Coast Guard had come that day to inspect. Is that correct? Was the Coast
I'm
Guard
not
on the
sure.
ship?
Yeah, I don't know on the vessel operation side myself, Tony. I'm the wrong
Okay,
person to ask about that because I've been focused on the
all right.
assets to get there. Yeah.
We had heard that the Coast Guard had boarded the ship, and,
Okay.
and that's what we had heard. And they said the ship was fine, and they let it go. That's our understanding. Also, as the video shows, as the ship is approaching the bridge, you can see a big puff of black smoke. What would that indicate to you?
Don't know. I mean, I've read the same reports you have, Tony. I mean, I saw the Wall Street Journal. I saw the issues related to fuel, the speculation related to fuel. It is an MV, so MV means motor vessel, mean its propulsion fuel is diesel. It's not a steamship. It's not a gas turbine ship. It is a
Right.
diesel ship. So I'm
It's a diesel.
sure that will all be looked into, and I'm just not ready to make a conclusion on that. But
Right.
the visual is the visual. There was a
Visual
puff of
is a
black
visual.
smoke.
That's right.
Yeah, no question. The black smoke was coming out of that.
Yeah, and right before it hit, and what were nobody was killed on the ship, correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. The injuries were
Yeah.
with the people on the bridge, and nobody on the ship died. Okay, so that was another thing.
Yeah.
So one of the things that most ships have, and did this ship possibly have it, is a redundant system. So one system shuts down, the other one kicks on, but obviously the entire ship shut down. What
Yes.
what could have that been? Um,
It's Tony. I've never seen anything like this.
yeah,
And I don't know. Um, I haven't got into the details of that, but yeah, I mean, look, general shipbuilding is two of everything, right? I mean, that's the way it works,
right.
and that's at a minimum, and that is always at a minimum, two of everything, machinery on board. Um, I just, I'm uncomfortable, at this
Yeah,
point,
sure.
not even being on the vessel or taking a look
Yeah,
around
sure.
and seeing what could have happened, but that's all going to come out with the NTSB and Coast
Yeah, I
Guard.
certainly don't want you to speculate. I mean, we saw what we saw, and we see now what we see under the bridge. And so the operations now are to get the equipment that your association and the people that you work with are bringing in,
Yeah.
the cranes that are coming in, and they'll begin to start removing. You say they've already gone down, they've dived, they've already surveyed the bottom. So now it's a master plan with Coast Guard and the locals to coordinate with the salvors how to approach this. And I'm sure there's a plan going on, correct?
Yeah, there is a plan going on. I mean, look, this is going to be an entirely private sector operation. No
Yeah,
question about it. It's going to be the private sector's assets that come in here. Incident command will be set up. That will be the government. Whether it's the feds on top, which it usually will be, because it's an Army Corps of Engineers channel. And last time we had a problem like this, it was actually the Coast Guard and the captain of the port, Dave O'Connell, is he's a master, right? The guy he's smart. He listens to the private sector. Okay. So operations are going to run smooth. when you have that cooperation between the federal, state, and private sector. Okay,
Right.
so that is in play right now. The assets are there. It's a matter of what I've said is hit the green button, hit the go button.
Yeah.
You put the go button in play. Let the private sector do their work, getting it done. I mean, the longshoremen, the ILA, they're out of work, right? At least on the crane
Right.
side. The ships that are coming in and out. People are really gonna want to start getting back to work now. So, once we get that ship out of the way, when the cranes, stop lifting, that, the debris out of the water, there's plenty of barges. I mean, even the companies in the dredging industry with the self-propelled hopper barges, they could be used to place metal material inside of them as well. And you'll see a round robin of barges
Hmm.
going back and forth between the site and Trade Point Atlantic. Now, Trade Point Atlantic, they have graded the land side all over the past 3 days. They've graded their land side so the ships can come into the piers and the docks. And then you're going to have, a series of machinery. Okay, so they can cut the steel right there. Then you have the machinery and the trucks and the dozers that will move that into the recycling part of Trade Point Atlantic, because Trade Point Atlantic recycles steel. They have to recycle steel in order to build their distribution centers because, like I said, every time they break ground to build another structure, they're finding steel that was left there from the days of steel shipbuilding and steel manufacturing. So, that's going to be the operation, Tony. The maritime, the U.S. Jones Act maritime industry sprung into action within 3 hours of this bridge going down. Okay. Nobody was talking about it. It was behind the scenes because it was search and rescue was the focus. But we're ready to go. And we're ready to get to work and fix this channel and open up Baltimore Harbor, open up the port as soon as possible.
That's good to know. And you said there's limited traffic coming in and out. Is that correct? Ship traffic
There's no traffic
limited.
coming in and out. Zero. So what
Zero.
you would have is, yeah, zero ship traffic. So yeah, zero. It is
Oh,
shut
okay.
down. So
Okay.
that's one of the ideas that we have on the table right now, and we're discussing with the federal government is
Sure.
digging a channel
Gotcha.
around, an additional channel around, so we can at least get smaller type vessels in and out in the interim. This may be going on simultaneously with the actual debris removal operations, but that is on the whiteboard right now.
So explain to me just one more time. What equipment is in the area right now that's going to start? How will the process begin? We're going to start pulling the vessel off, or we're going to start removing the bridge from the ship. I mean, how would this be coordinated? I mean, you've been involved with
Yeah, at some
salvage.
point, yeah, at some point, the first thing, or one of the first things, I don't want to say that the first thing, one of the first thing is you have to get that structure off the vessel. Okay. Because the structure is bent. The bridge structure, the steel structure is bent over the vessel, which is weighing the vessel down and embedded in the mud. Okay. So, one of the things that is going to have to happen is that structure is going to need to be cut or lifted off the vessel. Okay. Definitely going to be lifted off the vessel. How many pieces? That's still open. The engineers are figuring that out. Okay. Probably have figured it out already. Then you got to move the vessel out. Will that require dredging, careful, precise dredging around the vessel because it's embedded in the mud, at least at the bow side? Okay. Or will you be able to pull it off with tugs without doing dredging? So, that's going to be one of the first, major operations is freeing that vessel. Okay. Now, you could also have simultaneously some of those spans, whether they're broken or not underwater, or you can cut them, they're going to be removed around the vessel. Okay. So, through the sonar and LIDAR, we know where just about every piece of metal is that came down on that bridge.
Gotcha.
Because I've seen the digital schematics of what the floor looks like and what the hull of the ship looks like. So that's where this will all kick off and start from a major industrial operation, Tony.
So the question is this, and I've been pondering it myself. Okay. Um, And I'm not saying for all vessels coming in and out, but I'm saying that as stakeholders, as Coast Guard, as port authorities around the world, around the country, perceive areas that could be hazardous. Should tugboat escorts be initialized for moving ships in and out of harbors in critical areas? I mean, what is your feeling on that?
Well, I mean, Tony, as the former director of the Port of Baltimore, okay, and a merchant mariner myself,
Right.
okay, so I was an engineer on ships for 10 years. Um, it's always safety and security first. Unlike you, I mean, there's always a balance between regulation and economics, okay? There's always a balance, all right? And there's trade-offs. What I will say is this, and because I don't want to get out ahead of this, is there's going to be a lessons learned, okay, from this. And there will be, extensive discussion about how vessels move in and out of ports.
Right.
And it's not standard around the country because, all ports are different. Some have breakwaters like out
That's
on the
right.
West Coast, some are in the rivers. So it is a valid point, and I'm sure closely reviewed in the basically the coming
So
months
the
and
Port of
years. Okay,
Baltimore is owned by the city or the state?
state,
By the state.
state,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So the state, the Port of Baltimore, Maryland Port Administration, that piece is owned by the state. Now, inside, the
Yeah, of
coastals,
course.
the coal facilities private, some of the facilities are private. And then on the other side of the Bay Bridge, Trade Point Atlantic, that's private. So the Maryland Port Administration, Port of Baltimore, which is the container port and the largest railroad port, that's all state owned.
Okay. So
And then of
no
course,
ships moving in
of
and out, no ships
no,
moving in
nothing can
and
move
out,
in.
and nobody working. And so this is really a situation of extremis. We need to get in, we need to clear that vessel out, or dig a trench as they can work off to the side and get all the equipment in place. Okay, well, thank you very much for the update. I very
You
much
got it. I
appreciate it.
mean, the ILA workers need to get back to work. Everybody needs to get back to
Yes.
work. The truckers are gonna run out of, truckers are gonna run out. I mean, you have additional, boxes and cargo that are on the terminal, and, that's getting shuffled in and out right now, but, it's not gonna last long, so we gotta get people back to work. Private sector's gonna do this, the US maritime industry, Jones Act fleet, everybody's involved, so we're ready to get to work.
So the first step is they're gonna come in and they're gonna remove off some containers and start getting that bow out of the mud.
Yeah, they're gonna need to do that. Yeah, that's one of the first, if not the first pieces of
Okay.
the puzzle.
Just wanted to be clear on that concept. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tony. Have a good day and we'll keep in touch.
You too. Happy
All right.
Easter.
All right. Happy Easter, sir.